So our world is in crisis. We are seeing major systemic issues of racism, white supremacy, and abuse of power bubble over right now. And these are not new issues, but they're also not issues of the past. And it's clear that we all have a role to play in changing these systems and rebuilding them from a lens of equity and justice, especially for those of us who have benefited unjustly from these current systems. That means those of us that are white, men, straight, able-bodied, all host of other things that give us additional power and resources in society that we must use for others. And as photographers, those of us that wield a camera, we don't necessarily just become photojournalists in these moments. But at the same time, taking photos is extremely important. You're able to capture history and able to keep those in power accountable for their abuses of power. But as we go out into the streets and try and capture these moments, I want you to keep a few things in mind. One, it's not about you. This is not a time to build a portfolio and your credibility in the photography world. So don't center yourself in this moment. Make sure that the people who are on the front lines doing this work, the stories that you want to tell, are centered in the images themselves, as well as how you share them online. And two, remember that the subjects of your images are human. You may be taking your camera and putting it in their face in a moment that they're fighting for their lives, fearing for their lives, and are in a real moment of crisis. So remember to be respectful, be thoughtful, and show empathy. And three, listen to the people on the front lines. There are many people doing this work in the moment of crisis as well as every day in between. If they ask you to move, if they say don't take this photo, if they give you any other instructions, listen. They have strategies and organization experience that we must listen to if we're trying to help and encourage and capture these moments. Now I know not all of us as photographers are comfortable joining every protest, every march, every moment, and that's okay. I know for me, I've joined certain marches and protests in the past, and honestly, in this moment, I'm choosing to stay home. But that doesn't mean I get to skip out on participating completely. We can make donations to organizations doing this hard work, we can share their messages and stories online to our circles of influence, and we can vote for change. So obviously do your own research, but a few organizations that have been doing this work for a long time include the NAACP, Movement for Black Lives, the ACLU, and there's also a lot of local regional bail funds that have been created or have existed in these moments to help those who have been arrested during these protests. And again, do your own research and give where you feel comfortable. Now I also want to highlight a different side of this story, one that touches the photography community specifically and especially here in Chicago. Central Camera, which is the oldest camera store here in Chicago, was looted and burned over the weekend. They caught fire and pretty much lost everything. Now the owner, Don, was on the news and interviewed, and he made it clear that they're going to rebuild. He's not depressed about this moment, and he does stand with the protesters as they are fighting for what is good. But for me, and I know many others, this is where I've purchased all of my current camera equipment. My Nikon film camera, my Fuji X-T3, all of my Fuji lenses have come from Central Camera. And that means that Central Camera has enabled me to capture all of my work for about the last year or so. And I'm obviously just one customer. Everybody that they sell a camera to, lenses to, camera bags, tripods, means that they're enabling somebody to go make photos, to capture history, to make art, and we all know the power of those photos. And so to ensure that Central Camera can be there for years to come, they have set up a GoFundMe link to help with their rebuilding process. I will be sharing that link in the description below and making a contribution of my own. And again, I would encourage you to give if that is something you feel comfortable. So I know that this has been a different style of video than I normally share, but this felt much more important than what was on my content calendar for today. I hope in this moment you are staying safe, you're using your camera for good, and that we can all fight for a just and equitable society.